and complete. And only when you realize that, you will understand what bhakti is all about. So you might say, oh, submit to the will of God. If I submit to everything that's done to me, then how can I go on living in this world? I'd better shave my head and walk out of here. I have to submit to everything that's going on in the world. But you should understand when to submit and when not to submit. In fact, it has been said that how do we pray to God? We pray to God in this way, that oh God, give me the strength to change the things that I can change. Oh God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. God, give me the strength to change the things that I can change. God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. And oh God, give me the wisdom to know the difference. This is the most important. Not only should God give you the strength to change the things that you can change, not only should you ask God to give you the serenity to accept the things you cannot change, but you should constantly pray to God to give you the wisdom to know the difference. Because it is foolishness to struggle against the will of God when it would be wiser to surrender to the will of God. And it is foolishness to surrender to the will of God when God has given you the strength to change what can be changed. But although we struggle all our lives to change things, it is more difficult to learn to surrender. In fact, there are some famous stories given in the scripture. For example, once Vishnu was sitting next to his consort Lakshmi Devi in Vaikunta, and suddenly he jumped up and started moving forwards. But hardly had Vishnu taken 3-4 steps forwards, when suddenly he turned around and came and sat down. So Lakshmi asked him that why did you get up, run forward, and after taking 3 steps again come back and sit down? So Vishnu explained to her, there was a devotee of mine who was chanting my names incessantly and constantly. And while he was chanting my names constantly, what happened? 30 people came forward with iron rods to beat him. Just imagine, one single man chanting God's names and 30 people with iron rods came to beat him. So naturally, when I saw his helpless condition, I rushed forward to help him. But this guy, he forgot about me and decided to tackle the problem all by himself. So I came back and sat down. So when occasion demands that you can't do anything, you have to surrender to God. Because if you don't surrender to God and you try to handle it yourself, He leaves you to handle it by yourself. So time comes when you know that it cannot be handled by you, then you should learn to surrender to God and let God handle the problem. God, this problem is too big for me. I can't do it. I've thought about it. I weighed all the consequences beyond my power. Now you have to do something. That means surrendering to God. But if you try to tackle it yourself, you not only disturb your mind, but then God leaves you to solve the problem all by yourself. This is a famous story is given about Draupadi. So Draupadi, when her clothes are being stripped by Dushasan, the Vastra Haran, you might have seen that in Mahabharata. So Dushasan is said to have the strength of 10,000 elephants. So where is Draupadi's strength compared to that? And when he catches hold of her dress or her sari to pull it off, she requests her 5 wonderful husbands to save her. Normally wife looks to the husband to save her, but this lady, she had 5 wonderful husbands. So they should teach you not to depend on your husband to save you. Better you depend on God. So if Pandavas cannot save their wife, where will your husband save you? You should learn that your husband cannot save you, it's only God who can save you. So she turns to 5 wonderful husbands to save her, and not one of those 5 can do anything. So finally she turns to Bhishma Dev. She turns to the great sages in the assembly. She turns to Dhritarashtra, and she asks everybody there, please help me from being disrobed in public. But not a soul lifts a finger. Not a soul lifts a finger. So finally what does she do? She catches the sari in her teeth. In her teeth she holds the sari, and she holds on to her sari with one hand. And with the sari held in her teeth and the sari held in one hand, She raises the other hand to God and she prays to Krishna, and oh Krishna, you must help me. But Krishna doesn't help her either. Krishna does not help her either. She is holding on to the sari in her teeth. She is holding the sari with one hand, and with one hand she is raising above her head and asking Krishna, please help me. He does not help her. Then when Dushashan starts to jerk the sari, it is jerked out of her teeth and it is jerked out of her hand. And she realizes that my teeth can't hold the sari, neither my one hand can hold the sari. So why am I wasting my time even trying? Then she raises both her hands. And after raising both her hands, she calls out to Lord Krishna. Raising both her hands and depending fully on Krishna, then she calls out to Krishna. And what does she say? She says, Shanka Chakra Gada Padma, Dwarkya Neela Achyuta, Govinda Pundarikaksham, Rakshamami Sharanagata. That, oh Lord, Vishnu carries the Shank, Chakra, Gada and Padma, lotus. Dwarkya Neela Achyuta, oh infallible ruler of Dwarka. Govinda, protector of the cows, protector of saintly people. Pundarikaksham, Rakshamami Sharanagata. So I am taking full shelter of you. I am surrendering to you 100%. Now you must protect me. So when she surrenders to him 100%, then Krishna helps her. So this is a very, very important lesson. That if you surrender to Krishna 1%, he will protect you 1%. If you surrender to Krishna 2%, he will protect you 2%. If you surrender to Krishna 3%, 3% he will protect you. If you surrender to Krishna 50%, he will help you 50%. But if you surrender to Krishna 100% only, then he can help you 100%. This is what is said in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajami aham. Mam vartmanu vartante manushya patha sarvasha. He says that to the extent that you surrender to me, to that extent I reward you. If you surrender 10% to me, I reward you 10%. You surrender 100% to me, I reward you 100%. So bhakti means surrender. That means you should learn to surrender to God. And when you learn to surrender to God, then only God will actually help you 100%. In fact, it has been said there are 6 symptoms of surrender. And what are these 6 symptoms of surrender? These 6 symptoms of surrender are Anukulasya sankalpo pratikulasya varjanam. First of all, it means giving up everything that is not beneficial to developing love of God. Everything in your life that is not beneficial to developing love of God, give it up. And everything that is beneficial to developing love of God, take it up. This is the first 2 symptoms of surrender. People say, I am surrendered, I am surrendered, I am surrendered. What is the meaning of surrender? Anukulasya sankalpo pratikulasya varjanam. That whatever is not helpful to developing love of God, discard it. And everything that is helpful to developing love of God, take it up. So discard it means what? Discard it means there will be a lot of pain when you are discarding that which is not helpful to you in God consciousness. There are so many friends that you will have to give up. So many things that you will have to give up which are not helpful to God consciousness. Actually, everybody who becomes a serious devotee, he loses many things, because unless you lose something, you cannot gain something more. It's unless you lose bad association, you cannot get good association. So friends who will not understand you, friends who will not cooperate with you, you will have to give them up in course of time, because they will be struggling to prevent you from coming on the path of God realization. They will call you a spoil sport, they will call you a nut. They will say, why have you given up meat? Why have you given up alcohol? Why have you given up this? Why have you given up that? Behave naturally. They may even tell you, these Hare Krishnas, they brainwash you. Yes, it's a fact. Yes, it's a fact. I am brainwashing you. What do you mean by brainwashing? That means our brain has so many things that need to be washed out. Actually, the world is full of dirt, and that dirt sticks to our mind, and therefore our mind needs to be washed and scrubbed. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. That by chanting the holy name of God, all that is dirty in your heart is removed. The dust on the heart of your mirror is clean. Your brain is getting washed. Every time you chant God's name, your brain is getting washed. That is the purpose of chanting God's name, to brainwash you. So people will actually struggle to prevent you from coming on the path. Why will they struggle to prevent you? Because God is actually testing your sincerity. As I showed you in the slides on the second day, that when the gopis come to meet Lord Krishna in the night, Krishna tries to discourage them. He gives them 100 important reasons why they should go back home. He tells them that society does not behave like this, they cannot accept your behavior, you cannot do like this, you should not do like this. He gives them a big lecture on morality. And then the gopis say, please take your lecture on morality and stuff it. We have come here to associate with you. We can do without all these lectures. So when he is convinced of their sincerity, then only he associates with them. So also God will discourage you in many ways. He will discourage you in many forms. He will discourage you through many people. And that will be the test of your surrender. Whether you are willing to give up everything that is an obstacle to your realizing God, and whether you are willing to take up everything that is beneficial to your realizing God. It's also been said that Rakshishyatiti Vishwaso Bhoktritva Varnam Tatha. You have to understand that God is protecting you. Not only should you be willing to give up all that is not beneficial to God consciousness, not only should you be willing to take up everything that is helpful in God consciousness, but also you should understand that God is your protector. Not only that God is your protector, but that you cannot depend on anybody except on God. In the world, we depend on 100 people. Wife depends on husband, husband depends on wife, husband depends on friend or business associate. So we are always depending on somebody or the other. We must learn to depend only on God and understand that God is the only one who is protecting us. Draupadi learned it the hard way. You learn it the easy way. Learn by hearing. That you cannot depend on anybody except on God. Because God is the only one who protects you. Because so many people will try to put so many obstacles in your path. I remember that one friend of mine, or shall I say ex-friend, atheistically inclined, he tried everything possible to discourage me. He argued and argued, but of course I argued back. Then he discovered he couldn't defeat me in argument, so finally he lost his temper. So he said, you have gone mad, you have gone bonkers, and I don't know what to do with you. He said, I had great respect for you. You have always been a brilliant student. You've been excellent at academics. You had a very good career, and I have always thought of you as an excellent surgeon. And everybody I knew who needed some treatment surgically, I always recommend that please go to him because he is very good at his job. But now after seeing what you've done to yourself, I am going to tell everybody I meet, don't go to him even by accident. That this guy has gone mad, don't go to this surgeon even by accident. So I said, fine, if that's what you wish. I said, understand that patients don't come to a doctor because you send them to him. Patients come to a doctor because God sends them to him. A doctor is never dependent for his practice on other people to send patients as referrals. He is dependent only on God to send patients to him. Of course, if he acts through you, wonderful. But if you don't want him to act through you, he will act through somebody else, don't worry. The next day, his brother-in-law came to me. So when his brother-in-law came to me, I said, I'm surprised that you should come here. So he said that, yes, you know, my friend, that's your friend, I went to him with such and such problem, and he said I needed a surgeon's opinion. And so I said, let's go to your friend, nice chap who's just next door. And he told me, don't go to him. So I said, why? Why shouldn't I go to him? He's been such a good friend of yours. He said, don't go to him because now he's gone mad. So he said, how is he gone mad? He's saying all the time this crazy guy is chanting God's name. All the time this chap, crazy guy, is chanting God's name. Therefore, I won't advise you to let him touch you with a barge pole. Forget about a surgical knife. So don't go anywhere near him at all. He's absolutely mad. So I said, I see. Is that what he told you? Then how come you've come here? So he said, I just thought about it. I just thought about it and said that if this person is chanting God's name all the time, then he is the one person I can be 100% sure will not do an unnecessary operation on me. That's why I came to you. Of course, incidentally, he didn't need an operation, but that's beside the point. So he felt that if this guy is chanting God's name all the time, he must be the one surgeon in Bombay I can really trust, that he won't do an unnecessary operation on me. That's why I can go to him safely. So exactly what I was telling him, I said, even if you don't want to send somebody to me, if God wants to send him to me, he will send him to me. And this was seen the very next day in his own brother-in-law. So this is what you should try to understand, that God is your protector and nobody else is your protector except God. We always depend on different people. We think this one will help me or that one will help me or XYZ will help me. I must depend on so and so. But no, depend only on God. God may act through hundreds of people. God may act through hundreds of people. But there will be also so many people who will not let God act through them. But doesn't matter, don't worry. Because God actually says, He says, Kauteya prati janahi name bhaktya pranashyati. He says, O son of Kunti, you declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish. This is the statement of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, declare it boldly, he is telling Arjuna, that my devotee, he will never perish, because I shall personally look after him. He also says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemi vahami aham. He says, so one who worships me with unalloyed devotion, I preserve what he has and I provide what he lacks. This is the promise of God in the Bhagavad Gita. That if you become an unalloyed devotee of God, of Krishna, He will preserve what you have and He will provide what you lack, both materially and spiritually. He will do what is best for you. He will always do what is best for you. So never depend on anybody else. Don't depend on your husband or your business partner or your dealers or your distributors or whoever it is. Depend on God, because God will eventually help you when all the chips are down. Can you have the next slide? Of course, I forgot to mention two other symptoms of surrender. The first two symptoms of surrender are giving up everything that is useful to God and giving up everything that is against development of God consciousness, everything that will prevent you from becoming God conscious, and taking up everything that will help you in God consciousness. The second is learning to depend on God and learning not to depend on anybody else except on God. It's also been said that you should also learn to be completely surrendered to God. That means you should understand that God does everything and also understand that you do nothing. This is also a very important principle. That you should learn that whatever happens in the world by your efforts is not happening by your efforts, it's happening by the will of God. That nothing happens in the world that you perform, everything is done by God. That you do nothing and God does everything. When you do this, you will gradually acquire humility. You will understand that all success in life comes from God. All failures in life also come from God. They are also for your education. Failures are for your education, success is for your education. And both these things come from God. That you yourself, you are simply an observer. You are simply a passenger in a taxi, and God is the driver of that taxi. And God is taking you everywhere sightseeing. Your whole life is a tour around the city. And God is pointing out, this is this, this is that, this is that. He's taking you on a guided tour around the city. And you are sitting in the back of the cab and you are accepting whatever the taxi driver is telling you, because you have trust that he is the genuine guide. But if you start arguing with the taxi driver, if you tell him, no, 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 go this way, go that way, you try to take over the steering wheel, you land up with an accident. Don't try to do that. Don't try to take over what God is doing. God is doing everything perfectly. You can't take anything away from Him. He will do exactly what He wants. and you will not be able to budge him one instant. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriday deshe arjuna tishtati brahmyan sarva bhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. He says, I am seated in the hearts of all living entities, and I am directing the wanderings of everybody who are all seated in a machine made of material energy. So you are an inhabitant in this body, and this body is the vehicle. It's a machine made of material energy. And who is guiding the wanderings of this body? God. So this is the taxi. Your body is the taxi, and God is the taxi driver. You are just the passenger in the taxi. You have to do nothing except surrender to God and surrender to wherever God is taking you. So never imagine that you are doing something. Again, I bring that example of that slide of the kangaroo with the baby kangaroo in the pouch. The baby kangaroo thinks he's doing everything. He's jumping so high, he's running so fast. But it's the mother who's doing that. He's just in the pouch. So also you are like that in the body. You are in the pouch of God, and God is taking you everywhere, and you are under the illusion that you are doing everything. If you simply understand that God does everything and you do nothing, that will be a great step towards surrender. So surrender consists of 6 things. One is giving up everything that's an obstacle in God consciousness. It doesn't matter what and who that is. Taking up everything that is beneficial to God consciousness. Depending on God as your only protector and learning not to depend on anybody else. Understanding that God does everything and understanding that you do nothing. These are the 6 symptoms of surrender. Can you have the next? Last slide. One very important principle is that there is no loss and only gain in the process. There is no loss, there is only gain in the process. That on the path of bhakti, you can never ever lose. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Neha bikramo nashosti pratyavayana vidyate swalpam api asya dharmasya trayata mahato bhayat. That on this path there is no loss, there is no diminution. And even a little bit of advancement can save you from the greatest fear. Because if you have 100 crore rupees in your bank account, when you die, you will have nothing in your next life. You start from scratch. But if you acquire 5% God consciousness, if you acquire 5% consciousness of Krishna, then in the next life you will start with 6%. You can start from 6%, you don't lose anything. Whatever you put in your bank account of devotional service, that's a permanent account. It's a permanent account, it's permanently against your credit. And even a little thing that you do will be of great benefit to you. As I said, Bhagavad Gita kinchita dita ganga jal lava kanika pita sakridapi murari samarcha kriyate tasya yamena na charcha bhaja govindam govindam bhaja mudamate. That if you have read or if you heard Bhagavad Gita a little bit, if you have drunk a drop of Ganges water, if you have surrendered to Krishna even once in your life, then at the time of death you have no argument with Yamaraj. You are saved from the agony of going to hell. Therefore he says, worship Govind, worship Govind, worship Govind, you fool. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is asked by Arjuna. Arjuna asked Krishna, suppose I take to this path. Oh Krishna, suppose I take to this path. But after taking to this path, midway I lose enthusiasm and I fall away. Then I will have lost out so much enjoyment materially. At the same time, I will be nowhere spiritually. So I will lose both ways. So I will perish like a riven cloud. Sometimes you see 2 clouds, a little piece of a cloud, it leaves one cloud to join the other. And what happens? Before it can join the other cloud floats away. So what happens? That cloud is completely lost. Of course, this you see more nowadays in the elections. That you see so many dissidents, Ayarams and Gayarams. They leave one party to join the other party. And the other party says, yes, yes, join us. But once they leave the first party, they have no position in the second party. So like a riven cloud, they perish between two parties. So that is Arjuna's fear. He says, I am thinking of giving up this path of material enjoyment to take to the spiritual path, but if I leave this and lose enthusiasm, then I will fall away from there and I will perish in between two of the paths. I will neither be here nor there. So what does Krishna tell Arjuna? Krishna tells Arjuna, don't worry. If you take to the path of God consciousness, then you need not fear, because even if you take to the path and fall away, what will happen? He says, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. That if you take to this path and you should fall away, first of all, you will go to the heavenly planets. And after you have exhausted your desires for sense gratification in the heavenly planets, then you will come back to earth, and where will you be reborn? Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe. You will be born in a family which is both pure and pious. You will be born in a family which is wealthy and aristocratic. Therefore, you won't have to worry about your daily bread and butter and be caught in the struggle for survival. And simultaneously, that family will be pure at heart. They will be well established on the path of devotional service, so that you will have wealth and aristocracy, and simultaneously you will have religion and purity and piety. This is the kind of birth that you will get. And in fact, you will take up the path of devotional life exactly where you left it off, and you will continue to progress on that path. So nothing is lost. You will neither lose materially nor will you lose spiritually. In fact, he says, you will go to the heavenly planets where you will exhaust. Of course, as I told you, if you take to devotional path even little bit, you are spared from hell. So hell is out of the way. So not only will you be spared from hell, but you will be guaranteed heavenly planets where you will exhaust your propensities for material enjoyment. And then you will be born in a family which is aristocratic, rich and pure and pious. And then you will continue to make progress on that path in that family. So this is the nature of the person who has left material life to take to spiritual life. Even after a short progress on that path, if he falls away, this is his fate. And he says, of course, of one who has advanced a great deal on that path and then falls away, then he will be born into a family of transcendentalists. He will be born into a family where both the mother and father are realized souls who are great in wisdom. But of course, such a birth is very rare, because realized souls, they rarely have occasion to produce a child, and especially at that stage, a child who is born to them must be really a very pious and saintly person. So transcendentalist who has progressed a lot on that path, he is born to parents, both mother and father, who are transcendentalists, who are greatly realized in wisdom. Such a birth is very rare. But at least, even if you fall away after a short advancement, you can be assured that you will be born in an aristocratic, rich, as well as a pious family, where you can continue to make progress exactly where you left off. So if you made 10% progress, you started 11%. So there is absolutely no loss in the process, there is only gain in the process. You never lose anyway. You are spared hell, you are guaranteed heaven. You are promised an aristocratic, rich birth and a pious birth as well. So from there you can continue your path. So in this way, Krishna encouraged Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that do progress, take up to this path, because on this path there is no loss at all. And I will preserve whatever you have, I will provide whatever you lack, I will see that you never perish on this path. So now I will just show you a small slideshow on the 9 processes of devotional service, so you can understand this 9 processes of devotional service a little better. Known as Shravanam, and I am going to show you about a person in the Srimad Bhagavatam who has actually attained perfection by the process of Shravanam. That is, simply by hearing he has acquired perfection. So this is the story of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was the grandson of Arjuna, and he was to be the next king to rule after the Pandavas. So when Parikshit Maharaj was in the womb, Ashwatthama releases a Brahmastra, a nuclear weapon which is designed specially aimed at the womb to destroy the fetus. And Lord Krishna personally incarnates in the womb of his mother, Uttara, so that Parikshit Maharaj will be saved from the Brahmastra. As a result of this pious birth, Yudhishthira is so overwhelmed with joy that there is great celebration, wonderful ceremonies are performed, and hundreds and thousands of cows are given in charity to pious and saintly people. And Parikshit Maharaj, he becomes a great devotee of God right from a young age. He is constantly worshipping